Ladies and gentlemen, the FootballScoop Podcast is back. Week 11 preview, some early thoughts, a little bit of excitement. I feel like it's a week where we might get a little weird. Last week, I thought it was going to be an epic week where it was going to get weird, and it got real weird, amazingly weird. This week, we're going to see. There's some odd potential out there. Today, I'm Scott Roussel, joined by college football experts Zach Barnett, John Brice. As is typical, Thursday mornings we're recording. We've just released our picks.
Today, you're Scott Roussel? You literally just said, today, I'm Scott Roussel. Who the hell are you the rest of the week?
John, there's a lot of things we don't know.
John, thank you for holding him accountable.
Thank you. Other than the rest of the week, you're second place.
No, not the rest of the week. Just today. So tonight, I'll pick up one game, and I'll be one game back. And then Saturday, I take the lead. So, yeah, until Saturday, you're right. I'm in second place. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
There you go, folks. He's calling his Tulsa Golden Hurricane shot tonight. Hurricane Roussel.
We're going to start right there. So Tulsa's at Memphis tonight. We've spoken about this. Memphis is in a tough spot. Doesn't feel great for Memphis. They need to string together 3 straight wins to finish. And Tulsa, likewise, Philip Montgomery has been there a number of years now. And they put together these little runs every now and then, and two teams, they're back up against the wall. Tulsa's been a little better on the road. Memphis I think Memphis has kind of lost it, to be honest. I'm picking Tulsa tonight. I think I might be the only, I don't know. I don't know. Y'all, I don't remember who you guys picked, but
I don't remember, but Memphis,
I know I'm on Tulsa.
Memphis was in a similar situation a year ago and won enough to get to a bowl game. I don't know if simply winning enough to get to a bowl game is the solution this year. But Memphis played relatively well last week in a narrow loss to UCF, I believe. So I think the Tigers at home. Look, I picked Memphis because Memphis is at home, but obviously the Liberty Bowl is not the home field advantage it was under Mike Norvell and Justin Fuente.
So is Philip Montgomery at that Pat Fitzgerald level where they've got their guy and they're not too worried about the ups and the downs, or at 3-7 is it going to be question time, or is it question time already?
So no, he's not at that Pat Fitzgerald point. Philip is a great guy. For whatever reason, hasn't gotten him over the hump. And you would have thought, I don't know, he's got to be like, what, year 7 maybe?
Maybe even year 8.
Yeah.
I mean, he's built a lot of goodwill there. At some point, though, I don't know, you get worried. If either team tanks from here out, that's a real bad sign for their staffs. I think you're going to see some fight in that dog tonight. I think Tulsa sneaks this one out. We'll see. Another one that, we got another ball game tonight, college football. Georgia Southern's at Louisiana Lafayette. Louisiana Lafayette lost last week. Troy came in town and took them to the shed. But Georgia Southern's had an interesting season. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
We didn't pick that one, but I kind of think Georgia Southern may slip on the road and sneak another one. It's just been a transitional year for the Cajuns, and it's been probably a little bit more difficult transition than a lot of people expected.
Yeah, this year's been a real mixed bag. You're seeing some first-year head coaches absolutely kill it, and then you're seeing other ones struggle with, typical stuff of what we would expect first-year head coaches to undergo. So, yeah, mixed bag of a game, mixed bag of a season for both teams.
But when there's a head coaching change because they were terrible,
yeah, it's
a rebuild.
Right.
When there's a head coaching change because the dude's been dominant for 3 seasons, like Billy Napier was, and Napier ascends to a better program, you're not in a rebuild situation, but Louisiana Lafayette's in a
It's kind of similar to Oklahoma. I mean, I think they're both 5-4. Obviously, Lincoln Riley, that was a different deal. But you're not willing to say, "Oh, we hired the wrong guy." But it's like, what's going on here?
Yeah, I think also look at first-time head coach versus first-year head coach. And frankly, that's one reason I'm leaning Georgia Southern in this contest tonight, because Clay Helton is a first-year, not a first-time head coach.
Agreed with you. So fast forward to Friday night. A game that I think is going to be fantastic is East Carolina at Cincinnati. Mike Houston is a ball coach, straight up ball coach. Dude has won at the high school level, at the D2 or is D3, D2, FCS. Oh man, dude is a ball coach. East Carolina, it ain't easy to win Cincinnati, but if they win that one, they'd be in really good shape to beat Houston. I think they finished with Temple. That team like 9 wins if they win this one.
Yeah, it's basically a playoff game for both teams because if you win, you're still very much in that mix to play for the American Championship, which East Carolina's never done, and Cincinnati's won 2 years in a row, and whoever loses is basically done. So it playoff atmosphere, Friday night playoff game.
Good segue, Zach Barnett, into another Friday night game, right with playoff implications. The Pac-12 championship game playoff, and then the college football playoff. I'm calling my shot right now. If USC wins its final 4 games to finish 12-1, the Trojans are going to be in the playoffs.
I thought you were about to call your shot and say Colorado was going to win at the Coliseum.
I thought you were missing what game it was. I was like, you're talking about Colorado against USC.
But there's all this talk about the CFP and what happens if LSU goes 11-2 and what happens with TCU, which TCU is going to lose this weekend, and all this other stuff. But the fact of the matter is, if USC wins its next 4 games, which would be also a win over an improving Notre Dame team, UCLA, and then a Pac-12 championship game, the Trojans will be in the college football playoff.
I agree with you.
So
you like them over potentially a 12-1 TCU?
I do, because I think that they would close merely a 1-point road loss at Utah, unless there's a scenario, Zach, where TCU looks so good at 12-1 that both those teams make it at 12-1 on the strength of conference championships, and then would squeeze out a likely 11-1 Tennessee. Because in that scenario that you're referencing, Zach, then I think you have Georgia and or probably Ohio State 1-2, and then you're talking about USC and TCU in the 3 and 4 slots. That's what I think would happen if we had all those conference championships, and Georgia and Ohio State, let's say, were unbeaten conference championships and conference champions, and TCU and USC were 1-loss conference champions. I still think a bunch of Power 5 conference champions with one more loss than an 11-1, or one more victory than an 11-1 team sitting out there, as well as the hardware of a conference championship, which is what we've heard is supposed to receive a bit of an additional weight from the committee, then I think that's the scenario.
Given how the college football season typically plays out, we might be jumping a little ahead of ourselves here because things tend to get a little weird in the last few weeks. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah,
I hear you. I don't disagree with anything Brice is saying, to be honest. But there's a lot of ball to be played between now and then.
You can't disagree with a man wearing a Princeton hat. I'm smart by association today.
I got some good Princeton stories. Okay, moving on. Saturday, let's jump into a couple games, gents. LSU handles Arkansas at Arkansas.
Why is LSU only a 3-point favorite? I know it's on the road, week after Alabama, but Arkansas just lost to Liberty at home.
KJ Jefferson's health is a big mystery to me. He didn't practice early in the week. He's not been able to throw the ball at practice when he's been out on the field.
All the more reason.
And that probably factored in. This is a great rivalry. It's one of my favorite SEC border state rivalries. I think Arkansas absolutely can win this game. I didn't have the guts to pick Arkansas in our picks contest, but I'm telling you right now, I struggled with it, and I wholly believe it's the type of game, especially because the Hogs lost last week, that Sam Pittman circles the boars and has a chance to win this game.
Well, I to contradict what I just said, last week I talked about Clemson being in the 30s and in the various efficiency metrics, being the outlier within the CFP top 7. And now that outlier is LSU. They're in the 30s in a lot of different numbers. So the idea that they're going to win out and make the college football playoff seems unrealistic. And I could see why you'd be tempted to take Arkansas in this scenario. But
Yeah, I mean,
KJ
look,
Jefferson deal.
yeah, if KJ Jefferson was 100% healthy, then even with the Liberty loss as a backdrop, I would feel really pretty strongly about picking the Hogs. But coming off the Liberty loss, being a physically beaten up team, and then especially being a little bit concerned about KJ Jefferson, leads me picking the LSU Tigers. But I think it's a great game. I really do.
I have a significant degree of confidence in Brian Kelly's professionalism. It's just a thing that I just keep coming back to. I think Brian has his team ready, and I think LSU wins by more than enough. I don't actually bet college football games. If I did, I'd pick LSU in this one. Alabama's at Ole Miss. I struggled with this one. Really struggled with this one.
Yeah.
What
Still
sort of? Yeah, I mean, I think Ole Miss can do what they want on the ground against Alabama. Like, what makes us think that Alabama could slow down Ole Miss? Like I struggled to take Ole Miss outright to win the game, but Brice Young doesn't seem fully healthy. He's not getting a lot of help. I think Ole Miss. I think the line's way too big. I would take Ole Miss to cover all day long. It's like 11 and a half.
Is it? It was. I thought it was 8.5 earlier, or later.
Maybe I looked at the wrong number.
Yeah. I think it's the best game of the weekend. I think that.
I agree.
I think we all, or that's my opinion, that we all in general, college football people, haven't talked enough about the coaching job of Lane Kiffin this year, and I'm being 100% sincere in that because I don't think this is a really good Ole Miss team, which is why I think Alabama wins and covers this weekend. But I think the coaching job that Lane Kiffin has done this year to have this team 8-1 at this point in the season is better than the coaching job he did a year ago, better than the coaching job he did in his first year at Ole Miss. I just don't think that Ole Miss is particularly special in a bunch of key spots. I think they're pretty pedestrian at quarterback, but I think because Lane Kiffin is a really brilliant quarterbacks coach and offensive mind that Ole Miss is right here at 8-1 and will perform admirably against the Crimson Tide. To your point, Zach, which I think is a great one about Brice Young, it's one I've also seen. Obviously, we're talking different levels of magnitude, different degrees of player, but it's something I asked Marcus Freeman about a couple of weeks ago as well. Brice Young, to your point, I don't think he's exposing himself because of health concerns, be it because he's not remotely 100% or because Alabama saw in a hurry with everything on the line, it's not ready for Jalen Milroe or Ty Simpson. And so Brice Young has been encouraged to do more dancing in the pocket and extending plays behind the line of scrimmage rather than doing some of the things that we all know he's capable of doing with his legs. I promise you I've seen Drew Pine do the same thing. And when Drew Pine uncorked a key run that then set up his touchdown run last week against Clemson, I turned to someone in the press box and said, that's literally what I was asking about 2 weeks ago. It's just a part of their game. And when you take it away from either one of those guys, it dramatically impacts other elements of their game. So that's a roundabout way of saying that I agree with you, Zach, but it's because of your ego. If I don't go roundabout, it gets real big like Scott.
Yeah, it just seems like part of Alabama's game plan right now is just Brice makes stuff happen.
But Brice makes stuff happen behind the line of scrimmage. But it's Brice, make it happen behind the line of scrimmage. And the other point about the coaching job of Lane Kiffin is Alabama has never missed Lane Kiffin more than it has this year, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Missed him last year for sure, but man, Alabama misses Lane Kiffin and Steve Sarkisian this year. Big.
So, yeah, to your point, John, Lane had to replace both coordinators, and I think special teams coordinator who replaced when. The year before, right? Or maybe that was last year. So, it's an incredible coaching job. 8-1 with this team. He lost all sorts of personnel on the field, both sides. Lane's done a fantastic job, no question about it. So John says he thinks this is the best game of the weekend, Alabama Ole Miss. I have the option to pivot either to Texas TCU coming right off that, or Auburn, Texas A&M.
Well, I hope you're joking.
This conversation could have gone one of two ways. Let's go Texas TCU.
Yeah.
What you got?
I mean, I think you got to start with Bijan Robinson. I think he's the most underrated player in college football. Everyone recognizes how good he is. He's not getting the Heisman due that he deserves, and Texas isn't in the playoff race, but it's hard to imagine a better player, better person than him in college football right now. And so I think TCU is not going to be able to stop Texas running the ball just straight up. So I think they're going to have to gamble a bit and shoot some gaps and bring some defenders. And so you might see 2 straight runs for Bijan that go for negative yardage. And then the next series, you might see him pop one for 60. So I think it's going to be that kind of game, running the ball for Texas. And it's can the play action game work off that? Quinn has not been able to hit stuff downfield. Has just been off since the Oklahoma game. So if that stuff hits, I think Texas wins the game. TCU has not played, in any sort of a tough road atmosphere, and they've made a habit of falling behind and coming back late. Those games have been at home with the crowd behind them. If they get behind on the road, can they work that magic? I don't know. I also don't feel confident about Texas being able to slow down TCU because no one slowed down TCU consistently. So I think Texas wins a game that's like 45-38, 48-41, something like that.
Did TCU not win at Kansas? I can't.
They won at Kansas.
Okay, that was a great atmosphere. That was a game day weekend. So, but that's not DKR, obviously. Here's you guys know since last weekend I've been calling my shot that Texas will win this game this weekend. It is a great game. I think it's probably it's 1B to Ole Miss, Alabama being 1A this weekend. My other prediction out of this game is because C.J. Stroud and Hendon Hooker both left crack the door just enough last weekend that not only does Texas win, but Bijan Robinson runs all the way to New York City with this performance. Not that he wins the Heisman, but he does enough in this primetime, incredible showdown game that he runs to New York City as a result of his performance.
Speaking of Heisman, I've been touting the Max Duggan for Heisman for a couple weeks now. I don't think he's going to win it, but speaking of him, I think the key for TCU is Max Duggan on the ground because Texas did a really good job of bottling up Deuce Vaughn last week, and Adrian Martinez made a number of key runs. Duggan's a better passer than Martinez, so I think Duggan's going to have to make plays on the ground for TCU to win the game, and he's certainly capable. Last time TCU played in Austin, he beat them on a 30-yard quarterback draw. So I think that's going to be an element of TCU's game plan. And then obviously, the Gary Patterson factor. I think he's probably going to help the Texas offense more than he helps the Texas defense, just knowing those players, their tendencies, their weaknesses better than anybody, as good as anyone on either staff.
Yeah, agreed. I like TCU to find a way. I don't know how, I don't know why. I just like TCU to find a way. That's what they've been doing until they stop. I'm going to go with them. And I'm not so sure DKR is that much more lit than Kansas. Okay.
You might have to the Alabama players were blown away by the Texas atmosphere, and I think
the next thing you're going to tell me, Scott, is that you don't think the Pete is that much different atmosphere-wise than the Fog. I mean, come on, man. Like, let's give Kansas its due and hoops on the hardwood, but let's not say Kansas in one season has equaled the atmosphere at what remains a bucket list venue for me.
Past couple of years, DKR has been fairly pedestrian. It has. Past couple of years. Like
maybe the home team's 1-loss record there. I don't necessarily think the atmosphere has been pedestrian.
No, I think it is going to be lit. It is going to be lit.
Lit. There you have it. Lit, yeah. Scott.
Yeah, you're wrong. It's going to be lit.
Boom. Are you going, Zach?
I'm not going.
Couple of years. Have y'all seen some crowd shots from DKR? Fam. Okay. All right.
You're not wrong, but on Saturday it's going to be packed.
I'm not saying this upcoming Saturday won't be, but it'll be awesome. It'll be fun. But it hadn't been like that necessarily the past couple of years. Okay. Tom Herman era. Moving on. Sorry. I apologize for saying that.
Why?
Moving back down to the great state of Louisiana. Big game in New Orleans, Louisiana. UCF Tulane. I like the Green Wave. Straight up. Win the game.
Yeah, same. I picked Tulane. They're a quasi team of destiny this year. Fritz is already conference coach of the year, has to be, and he has to be. There should be the coaches who are finalists for coach of the year for the big ones should get a good trip, like the players get to go to New York for the Heisman. I know they moved all the awards now to Vegas, so Fritz and Heupel and Lane and
Frank Kelly.
And Dykes. Those guys should get trips to Vegas, all expenses paid, and get to sit up on the stage and see somebody win and have to do the polite clap like we saw at the CMAs last night, all that stuff.
That used to happen. That used to happen. That used to happen at the AFCA.
Did you pick that way? Did you pick that way, Zach?
Mm-hmm.
Good. I'll look for you further back in my rearview mirror.
You're not 20 games back, are you?
I probably will be. When you fall behind, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You have to take risks, and then when they don't hit, you fall further behind.
That's not actually what you have to do. You just got to pick the right games. Okay, moving on. Sorry. I picked Louisville to beat Clemson. They ain't going to take the rock home with them. But
Louisville's been playing better football of late than Clemson has.
I'm picking Louisville straight up to win the game.
They're not winning.
Starting a quarterback for Clemson. I don't think they have one that they believe can go win a game for them. And Louisville's been playing really good football of late. Clemson hasn't. 28-0 on the road at Notre Dame. Notre Dame's a good, solid team right now, but my goodness, Clemson has just been begging to be knocked off. And at this point, they're still going to play in the ACC championship game. I believe they've already clinched, but they're just begging to be decapitated right now as a top level team.
You're right about a lot of those things, but I just think, again, my term, plant your flag. It's Clemson will plant a flag there beside Howard's Rock and find a way to win this game because Clemson is still a splendidly talented team at a lot of key spots. And those guys have heard this week that it's the end of the Clemson era. And so I think all of those things feed into it being a less attainable trap game win for Louisville. Were this game in Louisville, then I think you could see the Cardinals win. And I may be on the verge right now of calling Louisville's first win in the Commonwealth Cup in several years because I believe that the Cardinals are on the cusp of being able to do that against Kentucky.
Well, you're going to see it. You're going to feel better after they beat Clemson. Washington's at Oregon. I was going to say night game, but not really out there. 4:00 start out there.
That's a night game.
Watson, yeah.
That's a night game. It's like sunset. I think I saw for my godkids who live in Utah. I think sunset is like 4:12 or something. So you're going to get, it's brutal. So you're going to get an early sunset there in Eugene. It will be a de facto night game. The Bo Nix is another guy that has made a Heisman case this year, playing really well. Like we've talked about all year, it's been so fun to see Bo Nix and Duggan and Adrian Martinez and some of these guys have these magical years after some of the things they've endured and absorbed through their careers. The real thing is, does Oregon continue its streak of 30-plus points scored? And
40. They're at 40 every game since Georgia, if I'm not mistaken. And I think they get there again this week. Oregon is 15-2 against Washington since 2004. And so getting the game at Eugene, they're playing too good right now. Oregon wins.
I agree with you. Baylor is at home. Got K-State coming to town. I'm not sure which K-State team shows up. Here, honestly.
Yeah, K-State's approach to quarterback was kind of weird last week because Will Howard played out of his mind in the blowout of Oklahoma State for an injured Adrian Martinez who didn't play. And then Martinez is back and played every snap last week against Texas. And then Chris Kleiman said they have a plan for Will Howard. So I think K-State fans were hoping that they'd ride the hot hand and, alternate a little bit more. I think you'll probably see that. Whoever wins this game is still in a really good position to make the Big 12 championship game. Since it's at home, I think Baylor gets it done.
Yep, same with me. And I think that I think we learned about Baylor last weekend, going on the road and winning and really controlling that game against a resurgent Oklahoma team that we had all talked about that had steadied itself and found its footing under a first-time head coach. Again, that the commonalities between Oklahoma and Notre Dame this season, I think, are very vast. And just like Notre Dame's got a game I'm not sure it can win in a couple of weeks coming up at USC, it's the same type deal this weekend. I like that it was for Oklahoma last weekend. Baylor just showed me a lot. I think Baylor gets it done at home.
Yeah, Baylor has a really good opportunity in front of them over the next month. Obviously, they won the conference last year. They get the top 3 teams in the conference in their next 3 games. K-State, home against TCU, at Texas. Win those, and then you get a rematch with one of them, probably TCU. And then, if you win that one, you're talking about 2 straight wins, 2 straight Big 12 titles with Texas and OU in the conference. They're about to leave. You have an opportunity to establish yourself as a clear top dog in a conference that, top to bottom is more, equal than probably any other conference. So, obviously it's a tough hill to climb for the Bears, but the opportunity is there.
All you got to do is win those 3.
That's all you got to do.
Yeah. All right, good talk. All right, going back to the ACC, North Carolina's at Wake. Has potential for some points to be scored all over the place. Can Wake pull it back together? Can Wake get back to what Wake was? Is it going to happen? I don't know. I like Carolina to find a way. I don't think it'll be easy at all.
Yeah, Drake May is playing really good football right now. I saw ESPN's David Hale point out that Drake May has hit 250 passing yards, 50 rushing yards, and multiple touchdowns for like 7 straight games. One of the longest streaks in recent college football, or among the longest streaks. Wake traditionally struggles in November. They just don't seem to have the depth that their competitors do. So the Heels are playing too good right now, and the Deacons playing too poorly right now for me to take Wake.
I took Wake just because the game's in Winston-Salem. I'm very much a Dave Clawson believer. And it's been a disappointing couple of weeks for the Demon Deacons, but they haven't forgotten how to coach. Sam Hartman hasn't forgotten how to play. North Carolina, impressive, especially that record looks really, really pretty. But of all the big time Power 5 one-loss teams that are sitting out there, to me, North Carolina is the one that I still have the most questions about, although I also have an answer, and the answer is that May will end up being a better quarterback for the Tar Heels than either Mitch Trubisky or Sam Howell. I'm bullish. He'll be better. He'll be better at the collegiate level for them, and I think he'll go and be better at the professional level.
I was so impressed with that young man just watching him in the app game. I thought he was just a star in the making. Let's stay in the ACC. Florida State's at Syracuse. Any quick thoughts?
Talk about 2 teams with the arrow pointed in opposite directions. Florida State hasn't won 5 ACC games and hasn't won 7 regular season games, I believe, since 2016, right when the Empire started crumbling. Syracuse has lost 3 in a row and really in a bad way right now. So coming off that huge Miami win, I think they got to go in the Dome and keep it going and get another win.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Noles get it done. I think that Syracuse still has a really plucky defense, but the offense is just completely disintegrated. And I know Schrader's been banged up, but it's more than that.
They don't have much talent.
Yeah. They just don't have enough there. They've got I think Aronde Wilson or somebody who's a really nice – Aronde Gadsden, whose dad played for the Dolphins, who's a really nice jumbo-sized wide receiver or tight end. He's good. The running back's good. And Schrader is nice, but but he's not elite. And Florida State has more speed. They have the best singular player on offense with Jared Verse, and they're better collectively on best player on defense with Jared Verse, better collectively on offense.
Seems like a natural transition to talk about South Carolina versus Florida in the swamp.
You know, we talked about this several weeks ago, and it was one reason why I think that the loss to Missouri will haunt the Gamecocks for a really, really, really long time. And that is this closing stretch of at Florida, home against Tennessee, and then I believe at Clemson. And for all the positivity that Shane Beamer has rightfully incorporated into that program, for all the positive steps forward gained by the win against a very identity challenged Texas A&M team, winning at Kentucky when the Wildcats did not have Will Levis. I worry about how the Gamecocks are going to limp to the close of the season. And I think deep down, if Gamecocks people could tell you, like, if we could rally and win one of these final 3 games, the Clemson game is the one that means the most. South Carolina doesn't really move its program needle with a win this weekend against Florida, and really wouldn't move it with a win next weekend against Tennessee, even though Tennessee will be the highest-ranked team that they could try to beat coming down the stretch. But a win against Clemson would mean so much to that program on the field, in the state, on the recruiting trail. So to me, that's where Carolina could still save its season. Otherwise, it's going to be a nice season, but not the step forward season that the Gamecocks needed.
Very well said.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, couple of games. Wisconsin's at Iowa. Any thoughts?
I like that game. I think it's going to be a fun game to keep an eye on. Not that it's going to be overwhelmingly entertaining. Don't furrow your brow at me like my little nephew Bennett.
Fun game.
Yeah, I do. I think it's just going to be an attractive game to watch because for all the limitations that Iowa has offensively, these are 2 of the best coached defensive teams in all of college football. And I just think it's fun to watch these really well-coached teams go out and play. And they're not the most gifted teams. Neither of those teams on either side of the ball is the most gifted team. But I think it will be a lot of fun to watch the defensive units from Iowa and Wisconsin. And I'm excited about this game because I think it's going to be a one-possession, one-score game.
John Brice just declared an Iowa game an attractive game to watch.
Put it on Twitter and quote me. Bring it.
Love it.
He's wearing the Princeton hat today.
Maryland's trying to knock off Penn State. Maryland is one of those like, what is this? I don't know. Penn State's playing better of late.
If this game was at Maryland, I'd take Maryland. But just like last week. What?
So Maryland has beaten Penn State 3 times ever. They've played like 45 times. They've beaten 3 times ever. One of those was in 1961. The last 2 have been since Maryland joined the Big Ten, and both were in State College.
Wow.
This one's in State College. So
I'll say this.
Then maybe it doesn't.
I'll say this. If Talia Tagovailoa gets the Terps out early, I'm still not a believer that Penn State can play catch-up with anybody. Penn State couldn't play catch-up with Iowa if it had to. And so if Talia, who in his own right is a fabulous story, can get the Terps rolling early, then to your point, Zach, it might be Maryland's 4th ever win against Penn State. I just don't see it happening. I think for all the good that Loxley has done, Penn State is still a more complete program, even with all of its offensive warts.
Yeah, I don't think this is a typical top 15 versus unranked team. I think Maryland has a shot there because Penn State is not a scary Penn State team.
Playing a lot better of late, though. I like Penn State in that one. Okay, Illinois took it on the chin last week. They got Purdue coming to town.
Go ahead, John.
I was just going to say I didn't have the guts to pick the Boilers because they were so disappointing in a couple of recent outings, but I would absolutely have zero shock and awe if Purdue goes and wins this game.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Big Ten West standings, and it's extremely Big Ten West. Like, you wouldn't have predicted Illinois to be on top, but it's Illinois 4-2, Wisconsin, Purdue, Iowa, Minnesota are all 3-3. So no great teams, but Purdue can. I mean, excuse me, Illinois could put the division in a chokehold if they win this game. They still got to go to Michigan, so you're not going to count on a win there, but they would be in a very strong position. And then they probably close with Northwestern. So you're looking at likely a 6-3 finish if they win this game. Bielema's got to have, they got to go out and play their best game this week with what's in front of them. Especially considering what Purdue put out there against Iowa last week.
I'll tell you this. I would bet that deep down Michigan and Ohio State are hoping that Illinois is not the team representing the Big Ten West in the championship game, because Illinois has the ability to sustain drives and shorten games, and that's a worst-case scenario for a team that's going to be needing to make that Big Ten championship game a statement to go ahead and vault itself into the proper placement of the CFP. Imagine if Ohio State and Michigan play this captivating 28-27 game, and whoever your loser is has just lost by 1 point in one of college football's greatest rivalries. And then what happens when the division champion goes the next week and maybe loses 20-13 to Illinois? I bet you that team that just lost and sat home with a 1 point loss in the big game is the Big Ten's rep in the CFP.
I can't follow you there. Whoever wins Michigan, Ohio State's in the playoff. But
the playoffs, they're winning.
What if they lose to a 3 or 4 loss Illinois team?
They're not going to lose to an Illinois team.
I just laid out the scenario they could.
Hold on.
Take my hat. Take my hat.
I agree with you, John. I could definitely see a scenario where it's like you're still living in last week and it's Tuesday and you're thinking you're going to romp over Illinois, and then all of a sudden it's the third quarter, you've had the ball for 8 minutes and you're down 14-3. I could see that type of game. But at the same time, you'll have just beaten an undefeated Michigan or Ohio State team. There's no way they're going to put the loser of that game over the winner, even with a loss to Illinois. No way.
If they were a 1 point loser, if it was Michigan losing by 1 point at Ohio State, and then Illinois turned around and beat Ohio State by 10 at a neutral site, Michigan, in my opinion, would get in over Ohio State at that point in time.
I'm just saying. No, they'd all be out. No. If Ohio State, Michigan, one of them wins that game,
that team's in.
If they lose to Illinois, nobody from the Big Ten gets in.
No. Michigan, Ohio State winners in.
Not if they lose to Illinois.
Even if they lose to Illinois.
The SEC crowd would laugh. It would be over. They'd have to implode the whole system.
That's fine. They can laugh. Michigan, there's no way those brands are getting left out. One of those two teams is getting in.
If you lose to Illinois, it's over. Anyway, good talk. Okay. We're 38 minutes in. We've had a lot of discussion about these big FBS games. There are other FBS games we can talk about. There are some FCS games we can talk about. I'm going to turn the floor over to you guys. What other games did you guys want to talk about before we shut this baby down?
Go ahead, Zach, while I gather my thoughts here, please.
I'm going to continue banging the drum. I've been banging all season long. North Texas is a 6-point underdog at UAB. They're playing the best football of anyone in Conference USA right now. I would take the Mean Green as a 6-point favorite in Birmingham. So that's, in my mind, 12 free points. I think the Mean Green go out and win by 14.
12 free points? I don't know how that math works, but okay.
Because I would take them as a 6-point favorite, and they're 6-point dogs, and they're going to win by 14.
Arguably the game of the year in the Southern Conference this weekend is Samford at UT Chattanooga. That's a fabulous contest. UT Chattanooga having a really fine season. Samford, the only loss being at Georgia. Hatcher obviously doing a fabulous job with the Bulldogs. They've won every game that they've needed to win. So I think that's a great game. I think Eastern Kentucky, Jacksonville State is a great game. Shout out EKU quarterback Parker McKinney, rewriting a ton of the records there for the Colonels program for different reasons that Scott and I have been monitoring. A huge game this weekend for Campbell. The Campbell Camels need to find a way to get a win against Gardner-Webb this weekend. They've recruited so elitely under Mike Minter, but they've got to translate that into some wins. And it's a season of promise that has really gone awry for the Camels, starting with that loss to Jackson State. So that's another game that I'm keeping a very, very strong eye on. And then always the Big Sky games. Eastern Washington's having a tough season, but they can score with anybody. They go to Montana, and then Montana State, who had the game that they won against Weber State a few weeks ago when there were the 4 safeties. They had a game last weekend, I believe, against Northern Arizona that was tied after NAU hit a 46-yard field goal to tie the game at 38 with 63 seconds left. 3rd and 10, Montana State sophomore quarterback scrambles right, finds his wide receiver. I forget his last name, but his name is Taco. Finds Taco downfield for 40-plus yards on 3rd and 10 to set up the game-winning field goal. I'm a huge FCS football wonk. You guys know this. It bleeds through in this podcast every week. So I'm fired up. I'm fired up for a bunch of those games this weekend. I'm really, really fired up for the upcoming FCS playoffs.
Just you mentioned Chris Hatcher there. Samford having this incredible season. They're 8-1. Their only loss was at Georgia. I think they were playing really well in that game, honestly, early on and even maybe into the third quarter. Maybe I'm crazy. Chris Hatcher this week came to mind because the Indianapolis Colts make their change. Frank Reich's out. Jeff Saturday comes in. Jeff Saturday is going to roll with Parks Frazier, who was like the assistant quarterback's coach, as his new offensive play caller. Parks Frazier worked with Hatcher at Murray State, goes to Samford with him. Hatch got this kid involved in coaching and really helped him work his way up in the profession. Now the kid's calling plays for the Colts. Chris Hatcher, come on, baby. I think Parks' younger brother might play at Samford, to be honest. I think he does.
And then the other one I already referenced last weekend, and I'm wearing the hat, Princeton-Yale, in a lot of ways, almost a de facto Ivy League championship contest. Princeton still undefeated at 8-0. They've got Yale this weekend, and then they close with Penn. They've been the dominant force in the Ivy League the last several years. I think 3 titles since 2018. But Yale having a great season and has been on a tear. That game's at noon on Saturday on ESPN+. So you've got Navy Notre Dame at noon on Saturday. You've got Yale, Princeton. You've got some other great games. Start your day with great football at noon on Saturday, and don't give up.
That's what we do.
Don't ever give up. Jimmy B,
Podcast.
Brice.
The Johnny B, yes.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure. Gentlemen, it's week 11. This is the week that Scott Roussel takes the leads in the Football Scoop picks. You can find them in the Pick'em tab. Football Scoop, go to the Scoop. There's always a link. Have some fun. Y'all enjoy college football because we got to embrace it while it's here. Let's go, Jets. See y'all in the games.